450,000 subscribers to YouTube. 99% of my revenue in a year comes from the email list. Got 150,000 subscribed to that. No Tripwires, none of that stuff. Oh my God. I cannot believe that I've never done that, because it's so obvious. I started in 2013, and so you can imagine the backlog of email subscribers over that time and the amount of people that I have got zero money from. I look back and think, what have I done? It's almost like I've thrown it all in the bin.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Selling Online Courses. We're here to share winning strategies and secret hacks from top performers in the online course industry. My name's John Ainsworth and today's guest is Mark Smith. Now Mark is the creator of Talking Bass, which provides bass guitar courses from beginner all the way up to advanced level. He studied music, completed his bachelor's in 1998 and went on to become a professional bass player across all styles. Or, as Freddie Mercury once put it, he's a musical prostitute. He played in rock and metal bands before and during college, worked in theatres, function bands, jazz bands, big bands, cruise ships, tribute acts. Then he decided he didn't want to go travelling anymore and stayed home, and he released his first ebook in 2013, started up a YouTube channel, released his first course in January 2015. He's been building ever since. Mark, welcome to the show, man.
Hello, great to be here.
So talk us through, who are you helping with your courses? Is it more focused on beginners? Is it more on advanced? Is it kind of like, is it an even split? How's that work out?
Beginners. I think I have no data.
There's a lot more
this.
Beginners out there, right, than there are advanced people.
The way I look at this is that even a schmuck like me, I'm not going out and buying courses on stuff. You know, I'm not watching YouTube videos on how to play bass. Anybody above a certain level is obviously not going to be doing that. They might go and look at, I don't know, like John Patitucci, or one of these bass players that's like a massive jazz name that's going to be doing soloing and stuff like that, and you'll watch masterclasses and things like that. But in terms of online instruction, it's certainly not advanced guys. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Maybe there's the very absolute beginner, which is again a very different demographic to like the intermediate kind of thing. I would say that myself, Scott Devine, Josh Fosgreen, all the dudes that are doing the stuff in this space, we're all dealing with the beginner to intermediate, like the middle intermediate. A lot of those people don't think the beginners or intermediate. That does happen where if you've been playing for a certain amount of time, you get a vibe and think, I'm doing really well now. But a lot of the time, there's a little bit of Dunning-Kruger in there where it's like you kind of don't know what you don't know kind of thing. So I would say it's about that. One thing I would say is that the majority are going to be retirement age. It seems to be a thing.
That's really common in music courses. I was just chatting with somebody yesterday about this. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's really common that music course audiences is retirement age.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I've got a good take on why that is as well. I mean, because I'm 50 now, and I was a kid once upon a time, and I know that at that point, yeah, believe it or not, and back then, in terms of money, I'd have had to have asked my parents for anything. I remember, so like I started in about 1990, and back then VHS hot licks videos and all this kind of thing, they were the thing at that point. Yeah. And even that, they were like 25 quid. And I was like, oh no, that was expensive back then. It was like, and I'd get a Billy Sheehan one and a Stu Ham one and a John Patitucci one, and I'd have to ask my parents for the cash. And it's just one of those things where you just don't have that kind of money. And then as you go further along, I suppose once you get into the 20s, 30s, 40s kind of range, people have got responsibilities. They're like going to have jobs. A lot of the time, they've given up what they were interested in when they were 16. And then they've got jobs, they've got kids, they've got this, they've got that. Every hour of the day is taken up and they've got stuff going on. But then they hit retirement age, or they get to that age where they've got loads of disposable income and a little bit more time. And all of a sudden it's like, right, I've always wanted to learn this, or I played it back in the 60s or the 70s, and now I want to do it. And that just seems to be the thing. That I think, like I say, I've not done any research on this, which I ought to do, but in terms of the ages, definitely 50 and above, more 60 and above.
Okay. And how big's your audience now? Because YouTube's your main thing, right?
450,000 subscribers to YouTube. That's been fairly consistent over the years. I mean, some people like Scott really, who's like the kind of big guy in this space, he was going up about the same rate, and then all of a sudden boomed, and he's like 1 point something million now. And mine's been fairly consistent over the years. It goes up about 2,000-3,000 a month. And to be honest, it never really drops. It never goes below. It never really booms. So I've got, which I kind of like. I don't mind that as long as it's not dropping. I don't mind that. So there's like 450,000 on there. In terms of the website, I have a free membership, which is basically my only lead magnet these days, and that I've got 150,000 subscribed to that.
Wow. Okay. And how's that? You promote that in all your videos, or how do you get people into that?
I used to. I'm so bad at a lot of this. I think part of it is because I started in 2013, just after my daughter was born. I didn't want to do any. I didn't want to go away anymore. I was always going away playing. And 2 days after my daughter was born, I had to go away. I was for 4 months. So when I came back, I was like, man, I'm not doing that again. And that's how that was born. I wanted to start doing Skype lessons. And so it started back then. And over the years, I mean, it's 2026 now. It seems it's just gone on for ages. And I've done things at certain points and then abandoned them and done other things. And it's like, you just keep throwing different things out there. I used to be very, very strict with the members thing and the lead magnet side of it. I'd be on every single video. There'd always be subscribe to the YouTube channel, do this, do that, like ring the bell, all that kind of thing. And then, remember to go to Talking Bass, sign up for the membership and all that kind of stuff. And I did that a lot. Over time, especially over the past few years, I've been trying to streamline the videos a little bit more, partly because YouTube, when it wasn't in its infancy when I started out, but there wasn't the kind of stuff that there is now, where it's almost a science now when people do stuff. And it was like you just tried everything. And back then, you could get away with having an intro. I used to have this thing that I used to do at the beginning, and I'd sit there talking about all the stuff that there is available. Now, like every second of the video is precious in terms of keeping people on the, because your subscriber count is a total vanity metric now. It means absolutely nothing. Like there's people that will have 10,000 subscribers, but they'll get millions of views on certain videos. It really doesn't put it out to the subscriber count. It used to. That's why a lot of my older videos are like millions of views, because that's what it used to do. But these days, every time I start thinking of saying, so remember, subscribe to this and do all that, it's just time I sometimes think I'm wasting. I think the key is to kind of integrate it into the topic, which is easier said than done. It depends on what you're talking about. But I've done it a few times where I'm kind of talking about, I don't know, arpeggios or something like that, scales. And then I'll kind of slip it in there, like, there's a coupon code for a course, blah, 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 scales course over at Talking Bass. In terms of the membership, that is the one that has kind of been pulled back quite a bit. I tend to go more these days for the coupon code kind of thing with a course, because I suddenly realized that I'm actually making money out of those. Not a lot. You'll get a few people. I might get 10 people buy a course in an evening just off one of those, on the night that it goes out. And I'm like, man, I made a couple of grand there. That's better than the ad revenue. That's for damn sure. So I'll, do that. And yeah, that free membership thing's gone a bit by the wayside. I am going to change that though, because the one thing that you'll know about is that selling cold is just, not that easy to do. And I do prefer getting people onto the email list because that has actually cut the amount that I get per month. It used to be like about 2,000 a month that I used to get. Over the past year or so, it's gone down to about 500,000 when on, sometimes, but that's really dropped off.
Yeah, getting people onto the email list is definitely the way. Yeah. Like in 99% of circumstances with course creators, you're better off getting people onto the email list rather than trying to sell direct. Because even though some people are loyal channel subscribers and fans and they watch all the videos and they know you when they're warmed up already, a lot of people, I mean, you can look at the stats, right? A lot of people, it's the first time they watch a video. So all of those people, if you try and sell direct, it's just you're not got much of a chance with them, really. But if you can get them onto the email list, and it's not like you get a high percentage onto the email list either, but like maybe it's 2% of the views you get on the emails. Maybe if you've got a perfect fit lead magnet, maybe it's 5%. Maybe on a rare occasion it's 10, but that's very rare. It's like 2% is like is a strong average, 2 or 3%. But of those ones you get onto the email list, you got a much higher chance of selling those guys something. If you have a tripwire straight away after the lead magnet, you can possibly sell 10% of those people something straight away. And every month on the email list, you can sell probably, if you do a really good job, like 1% of the email list something. And so the bigger the email list, every month you're kind of building up that recurring revenue. You do regular promotions, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, not to the level that you would do.
Yeah.
Basically, when I do a promotion, it's like, because that's how, in terms of my promotions, it's either going to be a sale or it's going to be a course release. I'll do an email at the beginning and I'll do an email at the end, and it'll be like a two week thing.
Okay, got it.
And that's it. I might put one in between, and that might be often that's just because I might do a live stream or something, and just to kind of help promote it. But to be honest, live streams don't really help that much with that. That's another thing that doesn't really. I'm doing way less of those. I used to do them like 4 times a week, and it's like that doesn't actually help in any way. But I know what you mean about the email list, because it's the one thing. I mean, there's so much in terms of marketing that I do not do. No tripwires, none of that stuff. But one thing I do know is that even with my minuscule amount of marketing that I actually do, the email list, without that, I would be broke. I would not be making like hardly anything compared.
Yeah.
Like if any of my friends are starting up anything, or I get asked for advice on starting like a YouTube channel or something like that, I'll say, get your email list sorted immediately, because that, in terms of doing a sale, it all comes from, I would say like 99% of my revenue in a year comes from the email list.
Yeah, it's just the way it works in this business. It's just like that's the system. The system is YouTube views, get those people into lead magnets, build the email list, send regular email, an email promotion every month.
Yeah.
And if you've got a new course, great. If you've got an existing course that you're reselling, also great. But just do that every month. I think, if we can get you, I know you're going through an audit with the team at the moment, but like if we can get you sending better email promotions the whole warm-up sequence and the launch and all the different angles, you're going to see a big jump in revenue. Like it's going to make a big difference.
I think so too. I mean, listening to you and Josip talk about tripwires, I was sat there listening to it and I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe that I've never done that, because it's so obvious. It's like none of this stuff is rocket science. No. It's like the minute that you hear about like, let's say that you present a certain thing like that, a tripwire, upsells, order bumps, it's so obvious. It's like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I'm so annoyed that over the years, because it's not like I'm one of the people that started in 2023. I mean, I listen to a lot of people on the podcast, and it's like, oh yeah, we started in 2019, and then it built up in 2023, and it's like, man, I started in 2013, and so you can imagine the backlog of email subscribers over that time, and the amount of people that I have got zero money from. It's just, I look back and think, what have I done? It's like, I hope I get some more, because it's almost like I've thrown it all in the bin. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's one of those funny things, right? When you're 30, you look back and you think, oh, if only I could go back and talk to my 20-year-old self and give him all this wisdom, right? But then you're like, oh, shit, I'm going to have the same thing when I'm 40, aren't I? So then when you're 40, you look back and you go, oh, fuck, you fucked all this stuff up as well.
Yeah.
And then it's happening again. Now you said you were about 50, right? Something like that. Yeah. So it's like, oh, fuck, my 40-year-old self, if I could just have told him, Tripwire funnel, better email promotions. Here you go. Here's $1 million in cash extra, you know.
I mean, there is so much like that. I mean, the time that I really wish I'd have got in touch with a marketing company would have been 2020. Like everybody, the COVID thing. I remember, when we went into lockdown, I can't even remember who were in power at that point. It was Boris, wasn't it? And they went on and says, oh, you were going to be having this, lockdown thing. And I was like, oh, man, I'm not going to be able to go into my unit. Oh, no. So I brought a load of stuff home. And I'm sat there thinking, oh, what am I going to do? I'm not going to be able to do my YouTube videos. I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to do that. And then a friend of mine who used to do some of the Google ads that I used to do, who's in SEO, and he does a lot of stuff like that. He rang me and he says, I think you need to do a sale. And I went, why? And he says, your numbers to your website have tripled, just over this week. It's going crazy. And I'm like, okay. I did a sale. And it was the big thing that changed everything for me. Up to that point, I'd been doing okay. I mean, it was like probably 5 to low 6 figures kind of annual revenue. And that I remember getting to the end of the year and just being like, oh my God, that was it all died down, obviously, but that would have been the time, because I would have had so much extra money to put into the marketing that would have come back. And I'm so regretful that I didn't do all of this stuff that I want to do now back then.
If you're listening to the podcast and you're thinking, well, what's this Tripwire funnel malarkey? There's a few. I'll give you a quick debrief, but there's a few episodes for you to go check out. Episode 132 is, in fact, let's start with 102 is exploring Tripwire funnels with Josip, and then 125 is about Tripwires as well, and 132 is about how to optimize your Tripwire funnel. So those are good ones. And then we mentioned the episode with Scott Devine from Scott's Base Lessons, and that's episode 117, building a $5 million music education business with Scott Devine. So you can go check those ones out as well. So a basic idea, just for everyone listening, a Tripwire is basically when you have someone signs up for your lead magnet, and on your confirmation page, you have an offer. And it's generally something quite cheap, and normally $27, $37, something in that kind of ballpark, where someone could just really easily, without knowing you all that well, go, oh, I could get that. And if it's not good, I'm not going to be upset at myself. Full sales page for it, and you have a 30-minute countdown timer with a discount. So maybe it's something that's normally $97. It's heavily discounted down to $27, $37, whatever. And you have that available on sale straight away. And that converts really well. It's the page, the step in your funnel that converts better than any other one. And almost no one has anything for sale at that point. Most people just have a thanks very much for signing up, and that's it. But about 3 to 10% of people will buy at that stage. That's kind of a normal conversion rate if you do a good job with it. So,
and I've got a good example of how you could do that as well, because I've been thinking about it over the past few weeks since I've been sat there listening to you waffle on about it. And I'm like, what could I do? Now, one of the things that, and out of everything that I do, one thing I do know is if you can provide value, a lot of value, for free, in terms of educational value for free. That is one of the keys to a lot of this. I know just from anecdotally and, testimonials and stuff that because let's say my courses, for instance, the courses that I do are a bit bigger than they should be, to be fair. I mean, they're crazy. So some of them are Like I've got a sight reading one that's like, I mean, it basically takes you from beginner to advanced degree level, and it's like 25 hours of video. I thought
Jesus.
about it after I'd done it. I thought 25 hours of video. Lord of the Rings is only 3 hours.
It feels quite long, doesn't it?
That's nuts. It's 700 pages of an ebook that I've done for it as well. I knocked all this out fairly quick as well. And that's one of my courses. Now, maybe I'm an idiot for doing something that big and having it as one thing. But one thing that people do get with that is they get a lot of value for money. That's for damn sure. So that's an extreme of it, obviously. But like taking that and putting that in everything, like all the free stuff that I do, like the YouTube videos, they're always going to be there's going to be a lot of value to them. Well, with the Tripwire, I was thinking, well, really, I just need something that's going to be that's going to answer the question that all of those people want, right? That I can do very quickly, because obviously the Tripwire's got to be a small thing, not a big, stupid Lord of the Rings thing. But I've come up with it. I think I know what to do. Okay. So one of the problems, I mean, this probably sound a bit weird to listeners that have got no idea about guitar or bass, but one of the things that everybody moans about is the size of the hands as a bass player, because it's a big instrument. It's got frets that are like quite far apart, and I've got fairly big hands, so like I've never really had that much of a problem with it, and I've got a big stretch. But you don't need a big stretch. That's the thing. Everybody thinks they need a big stretch to play on bass, and they think, oh, it's one finger per fret and all this kind of stuff. And I used to have Skype students that used to sit there saying that, no, well, I can't do that, and I can't do that because look, I've got tiny hands. I just can't do it. I can't do it. And I'm like, it's a technique thing. It's not a physical thing. Because I know bass players that are tiny. There's a guy that lives near me on the Isle of Wight, and he used to work on the ships with me, and he's about 4'10", and he's got tiny hands. But he's a pro bass player, and he can play. He's amazing. So but the key is moving around the fretboard. It's like actual position shifts, right? That is going to be my Tripwire. It's going to be a small course on how to, traverse the fretboard without a big stretch. The solution to the small hand, whatever it's going to be. I'll come up with some title, come up with something like that. But I think that almost every single person that signs up for that email list stroke membership will be interested in that, especially at a very low price. But again, it's finding the thing that all those people really need is kind of finding the problem that they've got and solving that problem, which I guess that's the same with all of these course things.
There's a few things. There's a bit of an art to kind of finding just the ideal Tripwire. One of them is you really want it to be something that's going to solve the problem in about a week. It's not big. It's not a big course. It's not going to have a big requirement for them. Something quite easy to do. And they can make some progress in a week, not like sell your entire course extra cheap or anything like that. And then it also ideally wants to fit with the lead magnet. So the best performing one we had a lead magnet was 5 free meditations. So this is someone in the self-development space. And I've talked about this on the podcast before. Teal Swan. And so she's got these 5 free meditations you get. It's the lead magnet. It's everywhere, all over the YouTube, all over the website, whatever. And then the Tripwire is the meditation vault. So it's I forget, 30 meditations for $27, something like that. When we first did it, it was 27 meditations for $27, which had a nice ring. But then she's done more and bung them all in there as well. And so everyone who's signing up for the lead magnet is by definition interested in meditations. So therefore, everyone who signed up for the lead magnet is interested in more meditations. Now, not all of them are willing to pay for it, but a good percentage are. So that fits really well. But then you also want the Tripwire to ideally fit with the courses. So you want people who've bought the Tripwire to then later on be like the same kind of people who would buy your courses. So you're trying to make the whole thing flow beautifully. It's easier said than done, but that's part of the process. If we're working with somebody, I'm sure when you're working with the team, they'll kind of go through this with you of like, how do we create something that does that exact flow so that all of the people who sign up are likely to buy the Tripwire, are likely to buy the courses. It all kind of fits nicely together.
Yeah.
So what's your thing about when one of the things you'd said to me beforehand was don't talk down to the audience, don't try and be an authority. Can you talk me through that? Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed with teachers in general, and Americans are really guilty of this.
Right.
Like, Brits don't seem to be as bad because they're quite self-deprecating. But there's a type of tutor, especially in music, because it doesn't happen in science so much because you've got to know your stuff anyway, where they want you to know that they're really good. It's almost like a plea for authority kind of thing. And I think what that does, if you do that, some people buy into it. People that are, I don't know, that respect strength and power and stuff like that. I don't know. There's like a weird little kind of psychological thing going on. But the majority of people want to relate to that person. Now, they're obviously going to want you to have authority. Otherwise, why are they listening to you talk about something that they're trying to learn? But in terms of that kind of relatability thing, I think that tends to go a long, long way. It's the reason that people like Brian Cox do well in the science space, you know, like the education there, Neil deGrasse Tyson. You don't relate to them totally, but they seem like the kind of everyman kind of thing, but a very clever version, right?
Do you think Neil deGrasse Tyson seems like an everyman?
No,
I guess
actually that was a bad example because he's a little bit more. In fact, perfect example of that Brit American.
Yeah. He pisses me off, man. I listen to him and I'm like, oh, shut up. You're so pompous about it. It's like he irritates me a lot. Whereas Brian Cox, I get your point.
Example actually of the difference between the two, but you get it worse in music with certain people, especially in the jazz space. Now, I've got a jazz degree and I've played jazz a lot. I like jazz. I mean, it's not.
I did not know you could get a jazz degree. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, at Leeds College of Music, it was that was their thing. Berklee College of Music in America and Leeds, they were the two that did jazz. But there was like classical and jazz. So if you played anything other than violin, piano, and didn't do that, you'd do the jazz degree at Leeds.
Okay.
So nothing against jazz, right? But there are a lot of people in that space that have that kind of elitist, kind of like pompous kind of way, where they really want you to think that that it's almost mystical. It's like it's this thing, or for you to know that they have studied their arse off. You know that I've done all this, and now you're listening to me because I've done all the work and I've done all this. Now, I'm the opposite of that. Bear in mind that me, Scott, all those people that are doing it, we've all been in that academic space. So it's not like we're not like that. But in terms of the presentation, I don't want to come across with any kind of ego, kind of just that kind of talking down to the audience thing. And I know that on the face of it, somebody listening to this might think, hold on, do people really do that? And it's like, yeah, they do. And it's often just that kind of authoritarian kind of way of presenting. It just seems like if you look at
it sounds like it does work. That it's just it works for a different audience to the one that you've got. Is that fair? Like, to some of these people, presumably, are very successful doing it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess. I don't think so let's say that we take it into my niche, like the bass niche. There's a bunch of guys that I'm friends with that are, some of the, I mean, a perfect example, you might not have heard of him, is a guy called Jeff Berlin. He is one of the greatest bass players that's ever lived, one of the greatest musicians. He's phenomenal. A jazz great as well. He was a big fusion guy back in the 70s. A lot of people might have heard of Jaco Pastorius. Well, he was about the same time as that, but he was like this next level kind of guy. Very, very academic. Came from a classical background, played violin before. He is what you would consider the kind of extreme of that side of it. And he wears that as a brand, to be honest.
Right.
But if you're wanting higher numbers, and I always think this with Jeff, like if he just toned it down a bit and he actually just related a bit more and was a bit more compassionate in the way that he actually sees things, he would probably do so much better. But like if you were to look at like I said, the three guys in our space that are sort of like the bigger YouTube ones are Scott, me, and Josh Fosgreen of Bass Buzz. We all pretty much have the same kind of manner, and it's that, and it works with probably YouTube a lot better. If it was a TED talk, maybe not as so much. If it was a Harvard lecture, maybe not so much. But in terms of YouTube and actually trying to generate an audience, I think it helps with that quite a lot. There are people that follow people like that, Jeff Berlin, and I'm not dissing Jeff Berlin, you know, I get on with him really well, but it's
just what works in terms of growing a YouTube audience is what we're kind of discussing, not like, is that... Yeah, okay.
Totally.
That's fair. Do you think that's the same across... You might not have so much experience with this, but do you reckon that's the same across all music niches? Because there's a lot of people with music courses who listen, so I think it's quite interesting to people.
Yes, I think it is the same across them all. If you were to look at some of the big piano channels, some of the big guitar channels, a lot of those guys have that relatability factor. I think it's just part and parcel of that platform. I think if you try to be too... I think what it comes down to, you know, is being yourself in a way. Every time I talk to some of these people that are a little bit more like that, when I actually talk to them away from what their public persona is, they tend to be a lot softer and a lot more,
right,
you know, because like if you were sat chatting over a beer and you were talking to somebody, they're not going to be sat there being all, you know, I mean, some people do. Fair dues.
Yeah, I've met some, Mark.
Yeah. but by and large, like I always like to think, what would they sound like if they were talking to the parents?
Yeah. You know what? That's a theme that comes up a lot when I ask everyone who comes on, like, what's the secret to your success, and like what things you do differently and what have you before we do the podcast. And it's very, very, very common that people say it's about being yourself, it's about being authentic. And what's interesting is that's actually not that easy to do on video.
It's really hard.
Right? It's like, and I think I do a good job on the podcast, but partly because I've done the podcast for a long time, but partly because it's a conversational thing, right? So it's easier as part of a conversation to do that. What I found, I started for a while doing more typical YouTube videos, like, you know, just presenting to camera, lots of B-roll, all of this kind of stuff, heavily scripted. And I was taking quite a while to get to the point of properly sounding like me. And what I actually found, I did some work with I had like a videographer who was like a YouTube coach / videographer, what have you. And the style that he wanted me to present in was actually more like that kind of authoritarian, here's how it is, kind of presenting in a quite a... and I was just like, after quite a lot of time thinking about it, and I don't know if this is right or not, I was like, I think I would have been better off if I'd been doing them more casually, more relaxed, more sounding like me. But taking a script and making it sound like you, even if you wrote it, it's not fucking easy. You know?
It's really hard. And it was the thing, I knew that I wanted to do that. So one thing you'll find with music dudes that do this, we've obviously had many, many years of performing and in whatever thing. So we generally don't get shy of being on the camera and stuff like that because we spend all the time on stage. One thing that it's kind of the same thing as being on stage in that when you very first start playing, like my very first few gigs, I just remember being like, not petrified, but like there's all this anxiety and you stood there and you're hoping that you play everything right, and just your brain, the synapses are just firing off and you're just like, and then gradually over the years, like I look so bored sometimes on stage. Isn't
that like a classic bassist thing, right? You know, you're like...
I mean, it depends on the gig, but like, man, like I remember there was a time when I did cruise ships for quite a while. It's where I met my wife, and I mean, they can get pretty ponderous at times. And I remember being on stage and I suddenly realized I got about, like when you're driving and you don't know where you can't remember the journey. I got about halfway through this set and I was like, I have no idea what we've played. And I was sight reading. I was sight reading the music. I had no idea what I'd read, what I'd done. All I knew is that I'd been wondering about what drink I was going to get from the bar after, and then they were having a curry night upstairs, the thing, and I was trying to figure out in my mind which curry I was going to have and how I was going to do it, and I was spending all my time doing that. So in terms of the relaxation, that's about as relaxed as it gets, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm sight reading, right?
Maybe a little too relaxed, yeah.
Yeah. So you get into this kind of relaxed state where you and actually when you're in that relaxed kind of state, you tend not to make as many mistakes. You tend to be more you can just deal with stuff a lot better. Like if anything goes wrong on stage, for most musicians, the first time that the mixer goes down or your amp packs in or no, my lead's going, first time those kind of things happen, it's like, oh God, what am I going to do? After a few years, it's just the easiest thing to deal with because you just do stuff while you're playing. You can sort stuff out because you relax, because you're not thinking, you're not stressing about it. Now, when I started doing YouTube, I was kind of taken back to when I very first started playing live on stage. I was like, it's such an unnatural thing to do. Like camera and talking to a camera with nobody there. I mean, like at least when you back in the day when it was all TV and everything and you got like, you go to the BBC or whatever, you'd have a team, there'd be cameras everywhere and stuff like that. But these days, it's just a camera and you, and it's just so unnatural. It's just so weird. And I found that really difficult to get my head round. But over time, I mean, if you were to go back through my channel, you'd see this in action. You see how the very first ones, I tried, this is how I'd do it. I'd be like, hi again, Mark here from Talking Bass. I'd be like really slow because I'd be like, oh no, I can't talk quick because, I talk quick anyway, proper yaks, you're like, me. And so I thought I can't talk like that. I'm going to have to talk slowly because there might be people from Peru watching me. So I'm going to have to go slowly and do it like this. And after a while, as I became a little bit more confident with it, I started listening back to what I was doing and thinking, that doesn't sound like me. It just doesn't sound natural. And then the more that I just started being like me, the better it became. And just doing live streams helped a little bit with that because at least then you're doing it to an audience because even though they're not in the room with you, at least they're on the laptop or whatever. So I found it a little bit easier to get used to it that way. But I still use scripts. Like, I mean, Scott's really good at winging it. He just turn it on, bang. But I like to have a battle plan when I go in with a YouTube video because, like, I'll have a very definite thing I want to get across. And I think, well, if I'm just going to wing it, I might not get it put across correctly. So I will script it very, very precisely. Then I'll put it on the teleprompter. And I'll use it to get started because often that's the hardest part is getting started with the video. Those first few seconds when you've pressed record and you're trying to get started, if you're just winging it, you're like, the ums and ahs come in. If you've got a script, you can start with the script and then I'll go off script. I have to sometimes because I'll be playing something and I can't be reading the script while I'm doing this. So the minute I get to the bit where I got to show you something, that's when I go off script. And I've got a little keyboard there. I've got it sat here actually, and then I'll press space bar to make the teleprompter go up and down. So I'll do that, and I'll just keep switching it back on and off. And sometimes I'll only use the script for the first part, but at least I'll have a plan of action going in. So I'll keep it going so that I can see what I'm supposed to be talking about and then just improvise around it. But that takes quite a while to get used to, especially to be able to talk naturally while you're reading a script. I found that was another hard thing. I would advise anybody wanting to do a YouTube channel to start out like that if you're not used to being on camera. If you script it, and then you go for it. Start by just following the script. You've got to get used to it somehow. It's pointless trying to speed up the process. Just read on that script, keep reading them, and then slowly try coming off script and just. I know a lot of people use bullet points, and they'll just have bullet points and they'll do that, which is great. And I'm guessing people like Scott probably do that actually, because they must have some form of direction. But I tend not to use bullet points. I use the script as my bullet points because I can just let it run, and then as I'm seeing what I'm supposed to say, I just change how I'm saying.
Yeah, makes sense. One thing I wanted to ask you about was you're doing audit with Josip and the team at the moment, right? How's that? Have you gone through that enough so far that you could talk about it? Because I know some people who listen to the podcast get in touch and say, I've listened for 2 years and I finally thought I should reach out. And I thought it might be useful for some people to kind of hear, well, what's the process kind of like? Have you had the first workshop already?
The first one with Josip, and that was basically a case of me just sort of telling him, what there is.
Yeah. But you've not had the second one yet. You're not.
No, that's the 1st of April. Okay. So they're currently going through stuff, and like I've said before, it's over the years. It's just what can happen is it can end up like a Jenga tower, so that you start especially with the website, because I do everything myself, so I do all the website and all that, and what you start with. Yeah. So however long, 13 years ago, what I started with then is not necessarily what I want it to be like now. But you have this unless you totally redo everything, you have this back catalogue of plugins, and depending on how you do it. If you use WordPress, you'll have plugins in there. It's a little bit easier if you actually code it all yourself. But if you've got plugins that are this, that, and the other, trying to... like I say, it turns into a Jenga tower where you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to change this bit, and it's the block that you shouldn't pull out, and the whole thing comes crashing down. So there's a little bit of that with with everything, that it's this huge load of stuff that's been generated over this time, and I think part of the audit is going to involve sorting through all of that.
Right.
But I gave him some ideas about that stuff. He also gave me a few ideas while we were chatting on that first one. Obviously talking about order bumps. Josip's face when he was asking me about some of the data. It's like he'd ask me about something about the email sequence, and it'd be like, well, I used to have one, and then it's like, how many emails would you do? And it's like, well, I had about 3, and it was like a welcome one, and then it'd be like, how many emails do you send on one of your campaigns, like Black Friday, for instance? And I'm like, well, I'll have one on the first day and one on the last day, and he's like, and then it'd be like, well, how long do you spend on your emails? I don't know, about 3 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And you have to
do you not like money? Do you not?
I know. But the thing is, it's been working. And I think some other people might fall into this trap. So, over time, one of the main things that I would say as a tip for people starting out doing YouTube and all of this stuff is just perseverance. If you just keep going, something will happen. And that's kind of was my mantra at the start, because I didn't make any money for about the first 2-3 years. We were living off my wife. She's a singer, and we were just living off her gigs. And I'm there trying to set everything up, and it came to a point where she's like, well, Mark, are you going to actually make any money out of this? And I'm like, yep. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then I released, I released an ebook. And that brought in a little bit of money. I do remember doing that. That was 2013, 14, something like that. I'd written this ebook, whatever it is, this study book of scales. It was just a scales book. And I've always wanted, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a novelist. I wanted to be the next Stephen King, right? So I love writing. So the writing part for me is dead easy. So I thought, I know, I'll write a book. So I wrote this book. And I remember getting in the bath after I'd done it. I absolutely stunk. I'd been doing all this stuff. I was like, oh, I need to get a bath. I gets in the bath and I set, as it went live,
Right, okay.
thing, and I just remember hearing the pings on my phone as the PayPal things, like as I was getting orders. And it was the very first time that had ever happened. I was like, oh my God. And then they were like $9.99 a book, but at the time we were broke, and I'm hearing these coming in, and it was like, oh man, I'd sell 2 of them. I'm like, well, that's 1 Skype lesson I don't have to do. And then it's like, and they just kept going, and I'm sat in the bath going, woo, we're making money. And so then that's when I started
making money while you bathe.
Yeah, totally. So we then the course thing started. And of course, you just let it go. You just keep going. And eventually, you start making money. And I was making what comparatively for a musician, because musicians don't make much money. It's not a good career to have. I mean, I don't want to tell that to any of the people following my courses and everything, but it's not a good. Well,
I don't know. They're retirement age. They're probably not expecting this to be their career now, are they?
Exactly. Yeah. So as a career, it's never that good. But you if you make a little bit of money here and there, it's fine. And it's amazing what money you get from certain places. But anyway, but this was like far and away above anything that I could have got as a musician, even if I'd have been playing for Justin Timberlake. I mean, it was like, I was like, oh, well, it's doing well. But just because you get into the 6-figure zone, that isn't the amount that you could be making. But because you get to a stage where you think, oh, that's all right, you kind of think that that's it, that I release a course, those people buy it, that's how much you make. All of this other stuff, order bumps, upsells, blah, 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 email sequences, all of that stuff that people do in marketing is extra to that. And you just don't realize how much better it could be. I mean, like I've said before, my friend that's the sort of big one in this space that works with you guys, Scott Devine, he makes a pretty decent amount of cash. And I just remember watching him sort of pull away with that. And the big difference between him and someone like me, I mean, we have different kind of channels in a way these days. We used to be kind of the same. But he's kind of pulled forward, and it's the marketing. And I've always known that because I know him so well. He sits there talking about it, and it's like, he gives me ideas. We'll sit there and he'll be like, oh, if you do, he gets his calculator out. If you do this and do that and click. The high value one that he talked about, the high ticket thing. Yeah. I remember him telling me about that. And he says, oh, by the way, if you do this, click, it tells you what the money's going to be for over a year. And I'm like, man, it's like these ninja tactics, even though they're really obvious, but it's like these ninja tactics that you just don't think about because everybody that's probably listening to this, probably, I guess, most of them start off doing the courses because they're good at the thing that they're doing the course about, rather than coming at it from, I'm a marketer. That's
99.999% of people listening. That's them. Yeah.
And so that's what they focus on. And they don't realize that the marketing side of it is so important.
Yeah. So if you want to hear that one about the high ticket offer that Mark's been mentioning from Scott, that's episode 117. And I just thought, if you want to learn more about, I mentioned about Tripwire product ideas. If you, I've got a guide about how to figure out your Tripwire product ideas. It's got 15 different high converting Tripwire product ideas for you. You can go to datadrivenmarketing.co/Tripwire and you can download that as well. Mark, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your whole journey and your wisdom about everything that's been working. If people want to go check out your channel, they want to go check out your site, where should they go?
Talking Base YouTube channel. That's easy to find. You put that into YouTube and my face will pop up. The website is talkingbase.net. That's there. And Instagram and Facebook. I tend not to go on that much these days, but that's the main places.
Wicked. Well, Mark, thanks so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate your time. And I'll talk to you soon.